You've been in public office for many years and previously ran for mayor in 2013 unsuccessfully.
Yep.
What do you believe you need to do differently to win in 2025, 12 years later?
Well, runoffs are back. I think those runoffs in 2013 have probably been successful in that election. I thought we had a positive message back then. I think that message still resonates today. I think ultimately, I've subsequently, while I lost that election, I still would have been able to maintain being a public figure. I think that goes back to having that open communication with individuals, just being honest with people. I'm on a campaign trail, knocking on their doors. This is who I am. This is what I'm about. I think I have a long-standing public record of people being comfortable with having those conversations with me. I think I've developed relationships across the board at every level of government, trying to deliver those positive outcomes for individual and being honest with people and having those honest conversations, what I can do better and what I will do better. I think we're putting all those issues out there. I think your first question kind of addressed our main 3 priorities or 4 or 5 after that. That's not just 3. We have a number of things we want to address, but we believe we could address those really big issues by not ignoring the small issues as well for people on a day-to-day basis. I think that's gotten us success up to this point, but ultimately, public service is something that has been ingrained in me since I was very young. So it's something that giving back to my community is very important to me. And I've known, listen, when I've lost in 2013, I woke up the next day, my kids loved me, my wife loved me, and no matter what happens with that, I have a town that I love. We've overcome a lot personally throughout these 26 years, from surviving cancer to a city shutdown. So the city is really taking me from a 25-year-old kid to a now 51-year-old man that has a lot less hair, but yet the same heart to serve people that's never left me. And I hope that comes across in my service in the past 26 years and going further as someone's mayor. That's someone that you can be proud of voting for Ruben Ramos. That's someone that always has your back, that appreciates every single day of public service that I've had over the past 26 plus years, that it's not something that I've taken for granted, that the belief system that people have put in me, and that's why I wake up every single day. Whether it's my students, whether it's my family, whether it's our neighborhood, and being cognizant of what I believe in and who I'm doing this for is ultimately to be the public servant that someone could believe in. Because if not me, who? And I believe no matter what my elected position is, I just want to have that voice for those individuals that don't speak up for themselves as well. And that started in 1999 from seeing my dad working in the housing authority and having those individuals back to expanding that citywide and being a proud Hobokenite and being able to hold my head up high and people saying, hey, Ruben's a good guy. And that means a lot to me personally, so every single day.
Amazing. Your father, Anthony Russo, served as Hoboken's 38th mayor from 1993 to 2001. What are some of the mistakes you feel he's made that you've learned from, and what are some of the things that he did well that you would carry forward if you were elected mayor?
Yeah, so let's start with the things I think he did well. I'll make one statement, and the one statement is that the entire waterfront, most of the western side development, most of the realignment of the light rail to the west side of Hoboken, all the quality of life changes that happened in less than 6 years. I think he served the city well as mayor. I think he was decisive. I think he did a lot of things that other people could not do. And he did that as a nonpartisan mayor working with both Democrats and Republicans. At the time, if you remember, it was Christine Todd Whitman was the governor. And she was instrumental in making sure a lot of the waterfront happened in the city of Hoboken. That was a really amazing time to see how a Democratic mayor, although nonpartisan election, a Democratic mayor in Hoboken could work with a Republican governor in the state of New Jersey to get something done for its residents. So I think there were some really amazing things that happened in the course of that time, and it happened at lightning speed when it comes to government. Yeah. And then some of the things that I think he did that I would do differently is probably how he developed, right? So I think the renaissance of Hoboken happened during that time, and a lot of the development that happened were exactly the things that I'm concerned about right now. It's that very high-end luxury living that we had an influx of new people into town, very wealthy people, And not that we don't want them here, we just didn't do the other parts of that.
Right.
And I think now we're at a crossroads where we have to house that working class family. We have to house those that are on that lower end of the socioeconomic scale, right? That is what I think was missing during that time. And I think he did a lot in a short period, and he didn't plan for what we're dealing with right now in the sense of housing our residents.
Elected to city council in 2017 and again in 2021, both times on Mayor Ravi Balla's ticket. You've been a strong supporter of his policies. What have you learned from working alongside him for 8 years that would help you serve as mayor? Which of his policies would you carry forward in your campaign? And do you hope to have his support and endorsement?
Oh, big questions. So that is correct. I did run on Mayor Balla's ticket in 2017. As I mentioned in an earlier question, I was actually recruited to run by Dawn Zimmer, and the circumstances of the 2017 election changed under my feet. So when I ended up being part of the campaign in 2017, it was a little different than what I had expected, to say the least. And then in 2021, I did run for re-election as well on that ticket. Mayor Balla was uncontested in that cycle of things, but we did have a challenger slate of council candidates. What I would say is that just because you bracket with somebody, it doesn't mean you agree with them on all the things. And there's no candidate in this world who sees eye to eye and agrees on 100% of the things all the time. In my career in the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, I work for a research office. We work very collegially. It is not a universe where you have to be on a dais and defend your position and kind of deal with a contentious space. So when I got elected to the city council, it taught me a lot about how do I defend the things I believe in? How do I stand up for the things I believe in to get my argument across and to potentially be persuasive in order to best represent my beliefs? When I started on the council, I was in a 7-2 minority, and that was really hard. That is not an easy set of circumstances to work in and feel like you were effective. Right. So what I chose to do was to take the opportunity to instead focus on constituent services and how did I work on building community, because it was a really difficult time to be in that situation on the city council. And there were things that were happening around me that reflected relationships that I was new to. I came onto the council as one of 2 new council members. Councilwoman Vanessa Falco had also been elected in that cycle, but she was part of the majority. So I had a very different experience. Mm-hmm. Just because you don't put out a press release telling somebody publicly that you disagree with them doesn't mean you can't disagree with them behind closed doors. And certainly I have had my disagreements with the mayor. I chose not to always advertise those because I don't think that was professional, and I don't think that's the right look for the city of Hoboken. I think you can disagree with people without being disagreeable, if that makes sense. I think there are things that the mayor has done well, and I think our response to COVID is something that really should be commended. There was a tremendous amount of leadership that got us through that challenging time, and it was kind of a masterclass in how government could work well together. And there are other things that I think I would have done very differently. And those are, from my knowledge, to inform, hopefully, how I have the opportunity to serve this community as mayor in the next cycle. They are things that, I think really inform the way that I work. I am a social worker by training, and so thinking about how I show up in a community, being accessible, being transparent, those are things that are really important to me personally. And I will continue to value those things in how I serve this community. I think this is going to be an interesting cycle with Mayor Balla is seeking the opportunity to serve as assembly person, and I wish him well in that. I did not get involved in the primary. It was a challenged primary for the first time in a long time because of the abolishment of the line. So June, there were different choices in the universe, and I chose not to get involved in that. And that was not by accident. I wanted to focus on my race, and I think the best way for me to be able to establish who I am in the universe and what I stand for was for me to focus on my race and to talk about what it is to be the next mayor of Hoboken. I think I'll leave it there.
Cool. You have a background in finance, but no prior experience in public office. What challenges do you anticipate because of that, and how do you plan to overcome them?
I actually think it's a feature, not a bug, that I'm not on the council.
Okay.
Look, people who are running, they're all on the council. Together, they have half a century of experience on council between them. And look at where we are. So maybe it is time for a fresh start. Now, fresh start, but not lack of experience. I have run large organizations. I've done large budgets. I've worked for Governor Murphy. I've worked for Senator Booker. and most recently for President Biden at US Treasury. All I've done all my life is numbers and budgets. I want to take those skills and apply them to the city because I really care for the city.
87% of Hoboken residents voted to legalize cannabis sales, yet Blue Violets face significant delays and costs before opening. Given your history on city council, how do you balance supporting small businesses with regulating industries like cannabis?
So I actually did both. I founded, as I mentioned before, I founded the Hoboken Business Alliance because we didn't have an organized voice within our community to support our small businesses. And it's been very successful. And I think if you ask the majority of businesses and commercial property owners, they think it's a great entity, and they think it's done great things. And I founded it, and I was on the board for the first 2 years, and then politics bumped me off of it. It's still some group that I'm very close with, and as mayor, I'm just going to kind of bring it back together with the city in a way that's constructive for our businesses. There's so much more we can do. And as it relates to cannabis, listen, cannabis was something that was just steamrolled into our city for political reasons, right? We had a mayor who said they wanted to be the first in the state to approve it when they were, doing all the firsts, didn't want to have a public discussion on it, like he's never wanted to have any public conversation. And then, there was a lot of, questionable, I think, choices around when our first dispensaries were approved. And again, like just no public conversation, no established policies. So I actually co-sponsored the Common Sense Cannabis regulations, our ordinance that put in place just common sense that fully supports this industry within our community. We had a council member who wanted to have unlimited dispensaries in the community where, I did a poll and 85% didn't want that, right? Mm-hmm. So we came to a compromise with Mayor Bala. We had an 8-1 vote on it where we supported having 6 because we felt like 6 was a good number. It would serve our community. We supported not having them, we already had some restrictions close to schools. Members of the community came out and said we don't want them next to schools. The state actually articulates and allows that. So we put together what we thought was, what was a policy that wasn't making everyone happy, but it was like the greatest good, made the most people happy, right? There are some people that didn't want it all in Hoboken. I wasn't one of those people, right? I worked really hard just to make sure it could work within our community. And so Councilwoman Jabor and I co-sponsored it, and we worked closely with the mayor. We were able to reach a compromise with the provisions. It passed 8-1. The mayor approved it very quickly, and now we have this framework, within the community that I think we have. Not everyone's happy, and not everyone's happy with all of them. We still have a dispensary across from a school, which is frustrating a lot of people in our community, whereas other people don't have an issue with it. That's just one of those things. It's not, and unfortunately, it's like binary. You either are okay with it or you're really not okay with it. And, that's one of those situations. The other one is the Story Dispensary, which is up in the 2nd Ward, where a super majority of the neighborhood it's a residential neighborhood, and they just didn't want it in a residential neighborhood near a bunch of kids, et cetera. But that looks like that will probably open, and we will have lost that battle.